Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It is a big day today. It is September 11th, 2022, which means it has been 21 years since the attacks on 9/11 happened. Excuse me. So I wanted to talk about 9/11 today and what it means to me as an American. This is, well, some people call it Remembrance Day, but that's actually another holiday. But some people do use the phrase never forget, or we never forget on for 9/11. So I want to talk a little bit about my experiences when I found, where I was when I found out 9/11 was taking place, what thoughts were going through my mind, and just overall the last 21 years have been like every September as this day rolls around. So, all right, I'll start by saying I want to preface this by saying that I am an American, and so I have feelings regarding 9/11 that sometimes manifest in a form of patriotism around this time of year that I don't normally express because I am pretty anti-military. And so I want to preface this by saying that because I am definitely pretty liberal, and so I am very anti-U.S. military. So when I talk about 9/11, I'm talking about it in the context of it was an attack on our country, not just in the context of go USA because we're the greatest nation on earth, because I have problems with America, obviously, and our military culture. So I want to start off by saying that. So let's get into just what the day was like. I'll start off by telling my story. It started, if I remember correctly, it was a Tuesday, and I was off that day. I didn't have to work that day, and I was at home. And excuse me. So I was at home, and I was on the computer chatting with my grandma on MSN Messenger, because that's what we had at the time. And I don't remember what our conversation was going. Like, I don't know, it was, probably how are you, blah, 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 what you been up to, that kind of normal, stuff. Now, this is pre-transition. So 9/11 happened, I was already 20 years old. So I was already, pre-transition means this was back when I was still presenting mail. So I was registered for the draft. So you have to keep that in mind. I was sitting there, and my grandma just started all caps screaming, "Oh my God, we're under attack, we're being bombed." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "Turn on the news." And so I turned on the news, and there was smoke coming out of the tower, and they were like, a plane flew into the Twin Towers, and we were still trying to figure out what was going on, and all of a sudden I saw the second plane hit the tower. And it was like, what's going on? I was freaking out. And I was like, is it really an attack? Were we just shot? Were we just bombed? Did somebody missile us? What was going on? I wasn't very clear, but I was freaking out. So I went and I woke my mom up, and I just opened the door to her bedroom. I didn't even knock or anything. I just threw the door open and I screamed, "You have to get up right now. We're under attack. We're being bombed." And she's like, "What?" Excuse me. And she was freaking out. She's like, "What's going on?" And so she comes out there, and we turn the TV on, and she's like, "We're not under attack. It was an airplane crash." And I was like, "No, they said it was a terrorist attack." And she was like, "What's happening?" And we were watching the news, and they were talking, and they were showing people falling out of the buildings, and then they watched the buildings collapse. And then as that was happening, there was talk about another couple other planes that had been hijacked. And then we got the news that the plane hit the Pentagon. And then it was like, oh my God, this is serious. They're crashing our airplanes into buildings. We didn't know who they were. We just knew we were under attack. And we were freaking out. My mom was like, "Oh my God!" So she called my dad. He was at work, and my dad was like, "Yeah, we're watching the news, you know." And then he came home. He came home for lunch, and we just watched the news all day long. And I remember we were watching the news when the president came on and he gave his speech, and I remember just being crushed. And my mom was holding my hand, and she was like, "It's going to be okay," because I knew if we went to war, there was a very real possibility I would end up having to go to war, or there was a chance I could get drafted. Now, fortunately, I didn't get drafted, and I ended up not. I'll just say I ended up not going, but I had friends who did go, and so it was a very emotional day. I remember my sister was in Baltimore at the time, and we called her, and she was freaking out because she said they had all the roads closed. She said there was smoke everywhere, there was debris everywhere, she said it was just crazy. It was like it was everywhere. There was smoke everywhere. And they had all the roads closed, and they had all the buildings closed. All the banks had closed. Everything just shut down for the day. And it was really intense. And so it was pretty scary. And I remember thinking, we're going to war. Like, there was no question in my mind. I 100,000% knew we were going to be at war by the end of the week. Who we were going to war with, I had no idea. And so then the reports came in, and found out that it was the Taliban that was taking credit for it. And then we were finding out that there were another plane had crashed in I believe it was Pennsylvania. That the passengers overtook the terrorists and crashed the plane to prevent it from going who knows where it was going. And then all of a sudden the whole country just shut down. Everything just shut down for the day. And it was a very emotional time for me. It was a very emotional time for my family and for all Americans. And I remember calling my sister in Baltimore, and she was freaking out, and we were like, "It's going to be okay. You're just going to have to relax, just stay put, and hopefully they don't fly any more planes into any more buildings." And I remember freaking out. I remember it was a total nightmare. So that's my experiences with what happened on 9/11. And then, of course, there was the whole 9/11 Commission, and then there was we're sending the troops to Afghanistan, and there was the Operation Enduring Freedom, and it started the War on Terror. And just like everyone else, I was like, go get the terrorists. Don't know who they are, don't care what they want, just go get them. We were just like, go get the bad guys. Give them a blank check. Pack our planes full of Moabs, and let's just go bomb the hell out of whoever we gotta bomb the hell out of. It was a very scary time. It wasn't just scary because here is an attack on our people. It was scary because, people are dying and we don't know what's coming next. We were literally in the dark. We didn't know if there was going to be bombs. They were stealing our planes. How many planes did they have? Were they going to be invading us? We didn't know. We had no clue what was going on. We just knew that we were going to war. And that was scary as well, knowing that we were going to have friends and loved ones going over there to fight this war. And there was nothing we could do to stop it. It happened, and we had to face the reality that it was real. And I had friends who went and fought in Afghanistan. And we're not going to talk about Iraq. I'm not going to get into Iraq right now. There's no point to it. But I am going to talk about my feelings in the aftermath of 9/11. I was still male presenting at the time. I was already trans. I wasn't out. I was still hiding in the closet, but I firmly knew I was trans at that time. And I was scared because trans people weren't allowed in the military. But I was scared that if I got called up, I was going to have to either out myself to get out of it, or I was going to get drafted. I knew I was either going to get drafted, or I was going to have to, I was going to face the pressure to join up like my friends were doing. Fortunately, I didn't join, and I didn't get drafted, and I didn't have to go. But I did have friends who went over there, and I lost friends who went over there. They didn't all come back. And so the war, it lasted a long time. It ended just last year. It was a 20-year war for us. And that was a big deal, for America. We had never fought a war that had lasted that long before. We just really didn't know what to think. And you have to remember, in the aftermath of 9/11, a lot of Americans were just pissed off that they attacked us. We didn't stop to think, did they have a right to be angry at us, or what did our government do to their government, to their people, to cause it? We just were like, look, you attacked us, it's time for some retribution. And so we gave the military a blank check and said, go send our boys and take care of the bad guys. That's what we did, and that's exactly what they did. Only we found out it was a whole heck of a lot harder. It was a whole heck of a lot harder than we anticipated. And 20 years later, what do we have to show for it? What do we have to show for it? A lot of dead bodies on both sides. And I was pretty indifferent towards the military back then. I wasn't pro-military back then, but I wasn't anti-military back then either. I was just sort of, the military as a thing. I just recognized, I was very pro-America at that time. I was a lot more conservative than I am now. I'm definitely a lot more liberal now than I was then. And I'm definitely, especially now that I'm out of the closet, I'm a lot more liberal. But, back in those days, I was living in Nevada at the time, and back then, Nevada was a lot more conservative than it is today, believe it or not. And Nevada voted for Bush both times, before they voted for Obama both times. So you have to remember, Nevada is sort of like a really weird state because they're very big on their gun rights. Nevada is they're very pro-military in Nevada. We have a military base in Nevada. You have to remember that. So in Nevada, a lot of people, even though they might be very liberal on some areas, they're very, very pro-military, very pro-gun. And so I had a lot of friends who were like, let's just go bomb the hell out of them. And then the other aftermath we saw, and we're seeing this play out now with PlayStation and Microsoft battling over the rights to Call of Duty. Call of Duty was a video game franchise that rose to prominence because of 9/11, because of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. We were sending our brothers and uncles and cousins and sisters and aunts and everybody over there to die in these two wars that were only loosely connected through politics. And that was it. They were connected through politics, but there was a lot of scandals going on to get them connected. They really one had nothing to do with the other. And so you had a lot of people who were jaded by what went down. Even towards the end, I maintained, even when I was, why are we going into Iraq? Let's get the hell out of Iraq. Stay out of Iraq. We don't need a broad war on terror. We just need to fight Al-Qaeda. I maintained the whole time, we're at war with Al-Qaeda. Let's keep our war with them. Let's not worry about ISIS. Let's not worry about the Taliban. Let's not worry about, what's going on in Iran or Iraq. Let's just focus on getting the people who orchestrated 9/11. And then, like a lot of liberals, once we got bin Laden, I was like, okay, mission accomplished. We got the sucker. Now we should bring the troops home. At that point, I was like, let's end it in Iraq. We've already brought the troops home from Iraq. Let's end it in Afghanistan. Let's do it. Let's bring them home. But I felt 9/11 was more just. In the aftermath of 9/11, the war in Afghanistan was more justified than the war in Iraq. And the two get conflated a lot. Because a lot of people are like, because of Iraq, they're anti-U.S. military and you know, well, U.S. government, and they're opposed to the military in general and anti-war. I'm anti-military as a whole, and I'm anti-war as a whole. But I still supported the war in Afghanistan, and I still support the troops who went over there. And when they come home, we need to support them with veteran bills. You know, we need to take care of them. We need to take care of the vets. We need to give them health care. We need to give them medical care. We need to give them housing. We need to give them mental health care. We need to take care of the troops. We shouldn't have homeless troops in this country. We need to do better. So I'm not all, I support the troops, but I do support the veterans, you know. Now, as far as combat troops and those who are over there fighting, I support those who are serving their country, insofar as, if you signed up under a pretense, whether it was a false pretense or not. You signed up under a pretense, so if you're fighting under that pretense, that's your business. You know, if you're coming out of poverty and you signed up because this was your chance to get out of poverty, I'm not going to smudge you. You know, poverty sucks. You know, if it's one of those, you signed up because you were pissed off about what happened on 9/11, and you were like, let's go bomb the bad guys. I'm not going to begrudge you of that either. Go bomb the bad guys. Let's get them. Fortunately, I think we got all the ones who were responsible for 9/11, but because we got distracted with Iraq, and we built Guantanamo Bay and turned it into what we turned it into, a political prison, basically. And then we passed the Patriot Act. Things went south. Things definitely went south. So I can't say everything that we did in response to 9/11 was justified, because we took it way too far. I don't think the Patriot Act was justified at all, and I don't think half of what we did, or even any of what we did in Guantanamo, was justified. And I definitely don't believe torture was justified in any circumstances. So the waterboarding and all that, we definitely never should have done. So what's my official stance today? My official stance today is I remember 9/11. I remember the feelings it gave me. I remember the thoughts I had. I remember the emotions that I had in response to it. I remember, the fears I had because of it. I remember the anxiety that our nation felt. And I remember the solidarity us coming together. We weren't liberal. We weren't Democrat. We weren't Republican. We weren't conservative. We were just Americans. All of us united under the banner of get the bad guys. And we were all chanting, go USA. We were all chanting USA. And so if you want to get down to it, when 9/11 rolls around, I'm going to wave the American flag and I'm going to say, go USA. But I'm not going to say that we're a perfect country and that we should wave the flag in all circumstances at all times, because there are definitely a lot of problems with this country. But you can't make everything political. Sometimes you have to step back and say, I just want to remember what happened. And that's what I want to do with 9/11. When the day rolls around, I don't want to make it political, because it's been political. It's been politicized for the last 21 years. And making it political is how we justified Iraq. And so I definitely don't want to justify other atrocities like Iraq. I'm ashamed for our country that we went into Iraq and that we did what we did there. And we did it in the name of the war on terror because of 9/11. So even though 9/11 had nothing to do directly with Iraq, or Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11, we made it about 9/11. And then we used that to justify going in and invading another country, tearing it up and leaving it in shambles, and then walking away, washed our hands and walked away and said, okay, we're done. We tore it up, but we're not going to fix it. And that was pretty crappy of us as a country to do that. It really was. So I'm going to say this. Never forget. I'll never forget. And I don't think any American should forget. if you were alive during 9/11, it changed you. It changed us as a culture. It changed us as a people. It changed us as a society. And there's no going back. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Unfortunately. The eggs are cracked. The chickens are out. What's done is done. And that's all I have to say. Never forget.